Good evening, friends. Welcome to another episode of the Career Shifts podcast, Journey to the Future. And what a meaningful moment it is. We are recording this on the 11th of May, 2025, a day that holds, in short, dual significance. It's Mother's Day today, a time to honor the ones who nurtured us, who shaped us, quietly made space for us to grow. It's also the eve of International Coaching Week, when we celebrate those who hold space not just for answers, but for awareness, clarity, and transformation. Two roles that are often under celebrated, but foundational, because both mothers and coaches remind us of something essential. Real power isn't loud, it's present. It doesn't control, it co creates, and it always begins within. That's exactly what this episode is about. Because behind every confident executive, every high performing leader, there is another story, one that doesn't get spoken aloud. A story of fatigue, of emotional weight, of feeling stretched between performance and purpose. So today, we are asking, what's really hurting leaders in 2025? And how can coaching become more than a tool, perhaps a lifeline? To explore this, we are joined by someone whose presence speaks louder than her credentials, Priya Ramesh. She's a master certified coach, applied psychologist, facilitator, co founder of Orenda Center for Leadership Excellence. With over 3,500 hours of coaching and a philosophy rooted in empathy, energy, and embodiment, she brings rare depth to this conversation. On a personal note, she's also been a guiding force in my own journey as a coach, a mentor whose steady presence, sharp insight, and quiet strength helped me grow in this path. In this episode, we'll explore the invisible emotional toll of modern day leadership, what performance often hides and what coaching reveals, why emotional intelligence isn't a buzzword but a survival strategy, the shifts coaches themselves must make to hold space meaningfully, and how leaders can reconnect with their own voice before the world defines it for them. This conversation will go live on May 16th, 2025, as a part of International Coaching Week, and I promise it's one that will stay long after with you, even after the episode ends. So, whether you lead teams, support leaders, or simply want to lead yourself better, this one is for you. Let's dive in. Priya, welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Thank you, Gopal. What a beautiful introduction, and so well said. And it's an honor for me to be part of this. And let's co-create something. We are
Absolutely.
something
Absolutely.
beautiful. Yes. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure indeed. And I think we are going through an extremely interesting journey as leaders as well. And if you really look at what bothers people today, um, of course, as we speak, there is a war going on.
Mhm.
And there is going to be a lot of distress that's going to come through the next few days, maybe perhaps months as well. Not something that we always want, but it is what it is. And in times like these, it's very important for us to find help, seek help. And that's what is the whole idea of putting this piece together. So thank you for doing this for us. Really appreciate. Before we start, any opening thoughts about anything that's there on your mind?
Um, Thank you again, Gopal. And I think what got triggered in your introduction is in my profession, I'm honored to be invited into other people's worlds, particularly leaders, to be able to hold space, like you said, empathy, and just hold space. For me, that's a very sacred space, if you want to call it that, where, I mean, you're literally entering somebody else's world and
Yeah.
just to be there. I mean, it is troubling times now. So, yeah, I think this is very topical, this is very real, and more than ever, the value of holding space, I think, just stands out for me.
Wonderful. I do have a few questions that we will go through, but I can't begin this episode without the topic, which is career shifts. Um, and using this as an opportunity to put the spotlight on you. Um,
Mhm.
why don't you, for the audience listening into this or watching this, walk us through your journey, your career shifts? How did it all begin, and what do you do today?
True, and this takes me back quite a few years, as you can guess.
Yeah.
Well, mine is a very sort of a different sort of a journey, in the sense it wasn't planned out. It wasn't that when I went to undergrad that I would do this and I would become this and I would achieve this. I didn't have such a plan. Um, Strangely, plans just got formed. It's always been very organic, these shifts. And if I were to talk about my career shifts, there are typically three big stages, big points, turning points in my life. The first one is my role as a corporate leader. So I started off small. For about 8 years, I was in the Middle East. And there I was largely working with the customers. It was a small firm, a lot of sales force, but the back end office staff was very few. And it so happened that we had to do everything ourselves, right? Stocks came, we had to check it. We, compiled orders, we did customer service, we just about everything. And for me, that was an absolutely brilliant learning ground. My boss, Mrs. Pat Mars, she was British. One of the things that I took away from that phase in my career is that no task is too big for you. She was the CEO, but she would sit on the ground and count the stocks just like I would. And she really didn't have to, right? So it was amazing to see, and that taught me that no task is too big or too small. And if you don't know what you're doing, you can't sit in a office behind a table and appear to know everything. You've got to get your hands dirty. You've got to get into the action. So that was a huge, huge learning experience for me. And then it so happened that, when you're talking about career shifts, Gopal, it's also parallelly life shifts as well, right? So my context changed, moved back from the Middle East, back to India. And then I got interested in, so temporarily I was working in a school because I was finding my feet, new place, and things like that. And when I started working with really small children, the one thing that stood out is, the challenges that really small children face is not their challenge, really. It's what's happening at home and their ecosystem. And that got me very interested in human behavior and psychology. So from an MA in economics, I jumped into an MA in applied psychology. And
Wow.
quite a shift, right?
Yeah.
And what that entire training was really a discovery of myself.
Mm.
And what it really helped me is to understand and accept me as a person. And that became easier. And because of that, it became easier for me to understand and accept somebody else. And I came to the conclusion, finally, we're all humans, right? We're all
Yeah.
at the core of it. We have very similar emotions, our thought processes might be different, but we go through some contexts in life which are very similar. The one really important thing that I learned in that journey to being a counselor and a therapist in that phase was to really learn about learning. So I
Mm.
became a very, very, what shall I say, maverick around learning. I just wanted to learn. I just wanted to imbibe. And I just, voraciously read books and spoke to people. And I was just taking in everything, soaking in everything, not just for knowledge's sake, right? It was also about how do I now apply this? How do I make this happen? How do I enable things for others? So that was a 14-year stint as a
Wow.
psychologist, as a therapist and counselor. And somehow, in all that eagerness to support somebody else, I started to not look at myself, right?
Hmm.
So I was experiencing a little bit of burnout, and it was getting difficult for me. And it was around that time the third shift happened, which is very organic into coaching,
Hmm.
where I was introduced to this by my husband and partner, who was into developing a coaching culture in the organization, was attempting to be a coach himself. And I said, hey, this is quite similar to some of the principles that I would use in counseling and therapy. So, and this corporate world always fascinated me because I had a
Hmm.
short stint earlier. And I said, okay,
Yes.
let me just dive in. And the whole world opened out for me after that. I won't discount the hard work. I won't discount the effort. I won't discount the learning. It has taken me 11 years to get to
Hmm.
where I am, but it has been one of the most enriching shifts I've taken. And what for me was really critical is that every shift I've taken, like I said, is not calculated. Okay, this will lead me to something else, will lead me to something else. I always went with a leap of faith.
Hmm.
And the second thing that helped me was also, I was just not looking at it with blinkers, just this, right? My vision was 360. So I call it, I don't know what it is called in a typical lingo, but I call it peripheral vision.
Hmm. Yeah.
To be able to see adjacent things around what I'm doing and sort of organically moving into those spaces, which are both meaningful for me as well
Hmm.
as it's relevant to what's happening now. So every shift has been organic, and it has been an opportunity for me to reinvent myself. I never
Hmm.
stopped at that. I never defined myself that this is all I am. I can be more, I can be different. So every opportunity, so mine is a story of reinvention, if you really
Yes.
ask. Yeah.
Well, the
And
theme
it
of
is,
the
sorry.
podcast is also that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, you were saying something. Go ahead.
Yeah. And so, I mean, and the right through all these shifts, it was always about people.
Hmm.
And so the common thread through these shifts, career shifts, the work that I've done, it's always been about people. And it's a fascinating world. Like I said, it's an honor to be invited into somebody else's world. And I hold that very preciously close to my heart. It
Hmm.
adds meaning to the work that I do. It makes me alive. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Incredible. And I've been fortunate enough of being part of some of those conversations, so completely agree and relate to it. But as we, speak about, I mean, as you were speaking about your journey, one of the words that you mentioned about was burnout.
Yes.
Um, that's not something that typically comes into the mainstream conversation as much as it should.
Mhm.
Um, I've seen a lot of people not even realize it to begin with. So if I were to look at my dad's or my parents' generation, uh, they would all feel a bit of burnout, perhaps more burnout, but they never would speak up because for them it was about being resilient, being for the family, taking care of it without really worrying about what's happening to them. And as a result, health was often neglected. There is a bit of awareness today, which we do see in some conversations here and there, typically forums. But speaking about it is one thing. Feeling burnt out is about the other. Yet a lot of people at senior positions or perhaps even junior leadership positions experiences but don't know anything about it. So please explain the audience what burnout means. How do you
Mm,
feel it,
mm,
perhaps, and when would you know that it's the right time to seek help?
yeah. You're very right, Gopal, in that burnout is something that is, it just seeps in. Yeah.
Mm,
It's not something that just lands on you one fine day. It sort of seeps in. And one of the ways I knew that I was going through a burnout myself was the work wasn't exciting for me anymore.
mm,
Right? Everything seemed like a chore.
mm,
Oh, I have to do this. I must. So everything became very heavy.
mm,
And the excitement and it's not just work, excitement for anything and everything started to wane. And so this burnout, whether it is emanating from the work that you do or life situations, it its tentacles move all over your life, right?
mm.
Slowly. And it is the sap of energy which is something that I would watch out for. Saying, why am I not excited?
Mm.
What's taking away my excitement? What will get me excited and be spontaneous? So that was one of the, what shall I say, a key indicator to me, saying no, something must change.
Sure.
The other aspect about burnout is, see, we don't spend enough time to reflect and
Mm.
process ourselves. What we do, what is it doing to us? How am I processing what's going on? You talked about the war situation, right? It brings up emotions
Yeah.
in different people in different ways. um, do we have the space and ways to process this? And so when we do not give ourselves that time to nourish and rejuvenate ourselves, nourish is the word, you know
Mm.
it's sort of, we have to find avenues to energize ourselves. And when that doesn't happen, we say, oh, this is okay, we'll get over it. So you have something called you know toxic positivity, right?
Mm.
um, it's
Yeah.
everything is okay. Yes,
Yeah.
it is okay, but before that we got to recognize it's not okay.
Mm.
And not allowing that reflection and processing for ourselves, I think,
Mm.
plays a very big part in burnout.
Mm.
And this is agnostic of whatever job or role that you play. And you talked about parents and earlier times, right? They had rituals in their lives, rituals that anchored them into normalcy, if you may call
Yes.
it. Um, in our speed, we don't have time for that, or we don't make time for that. And I see a huge amount of value in whatever those rituals are, whatever anchors you and centers you. And when we don't do that, and we just on a roller coaster, we feel drained. And that for me is the biggest indicator of, okay, something must change.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting you bring out the point of rituals. I was, as I said, in a workshop yesterday, and often, and this is being a conversation that we are seeing more often these days about workspace cultures.
Hmm.
And in fact, I had written about this as well a couple of weeks ago about what culture is, and I think it's nothing but rituals
Yeah.
in many ways. I mean, you like, why do we celebrate something at homes? Like, being a South Indian and from Kerala, Vishu happens to be a pretty big festival for us. There is a reason why we celebrate Vishu or Onam or, for that matter, or Baisakhi. And there are certain rituals that people in our older generations would follow about fasting during Navratri, or, fasting every month for that matter.
Mhm.
These would ensure that their well-being is taken care of. We, in the speed of life, have kind of compromised a lot on that, and then say that culture is bad. Maybe some things around rituals has to be brought back. But in In your experience of having coached several leaders, what do you think is manifesting in their heads and their lives and workspaces? Uh,
Mm.
Burnout is one thing for sure, but has anything fundamentally shifted today for leaders that they are unable to cope with the modern day leadership realities? Any
Mm.
thoughts that you can bring out?
Sure, Gopal. And as I'm thinking through this, I'm in my mind, some of the leaders that I've coached sort of come to
Yes.
a mind. I think the biggest challenge for everybody today, as I've seen it, is speed,
Mm,
right? And speed of many things, speed of change, speed of wanting to achieve faster. Um, and in that speed, what we are compromising is the space for us to grow.
mm,
So, what I'm seeing now is there's a lot of pressure, and these are not spoken about. You talked about
mm,
culture, talked about
mm.
norms. There are some that are underplaying what's set out as the culture of the organization, norms of the organization. So, couple of things that really seem to bother leaders is how can I stay relevant in the speed of change?
Mm.
And relevance is often associated with roles and titles, right?
Mm.
So, and our metrics,
Yeah,
are really about did you achieve the outcome? Outcome is
yeah.
important, but do we have a system that supports the effort?
Mm.
How do we define success? Is success the same when you started out in your first job versus as a CXO? No. And I remember having coached one of the leaders who had to completely redefine what success is in that role.
Yeah.
So he was a he is a CHRO in an organization, and he was going by, and I call that a report card, right? The report card which was given to him by his parents and then his teachers and his first job. The same parameters continued to keep driving him, and he just couldn't figure out, why am I feeling so tired? Why am
Yeah.
I not feeling I'm adding value here? What can I do differently? I just can't seem to catch up, really. And this was the fundamental thing. And it was about, what the coaching conversation was really about rewriting that report card, saying the
Mm.
parameters that I'm going to put into that report card that defines my success is different now. And I'm choosing those parameters. It's not just my role or my title.
Yeah.
It's not just performance. Yes, performance, I mean, there's no two ways about it.
Matters,
That's
matters.
important.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it definitely matters. But the fact is that you've got to really look at your relevance. What's the legacy you're leaving for the organization? What's the impact that you are having on your employees, in your team, in the whole organization itself? So, this need to be relevant and finding the value in what I'm doing is so determined by outside forces. And that is something that leaders struggle to come to terms with. Can I,
Sure.
can I figure this out myself? I'll get my role, I'll get my promotion, I'll get my title. But in the process, can I also keep my anchor in my purpose, in the impact that I'm creating, and what success really means for me? I think that's the challenge in a lot of leadership scenarios with the speed of change. And we know about, Bani, VUCA is replaced by Bani. Everything is
Correct.
so brittle.
Yeah.
Change is
I've
so
heard
slow.
rupt as well.
Yeah. Yeah, we're good at that, right?
Yeah.
Coining terms, but that's the
Coining new
reality.
terms. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's the reality, right? So how do we how do we stay relevant is one of the, I find, one of the
Hmm.
really big struggles with leaders today.
I mean, there are two words that came out in what you just said, and one is exhaustion, and the other is, purpose.
Mm.
And often there are two sets of people that you end up chatting with. One is the set that believes that there is a need for us to reflect on this. And then there is other set of people who would be like, oh, these are all too fashionable type of conversations to be had. I mean, it didn't work. Like, you don't know what we all have gone through. We never spoke about all of this, but still we succeeded. And it's often the generational divide that we kind of are trying to bring in. And I also spoke to the earlier in the earlier podcast with Sajid, who beautifully brought in two different worlds of, the millennials, the boomers, and the Gen Zs. So, what would you have to say to someone who is leader of an organization and perhaps also comes with a different belief system that believes that it's always good to be kind of going at it, outcome driven, focused? At some point of time, there will be a tipping point or a break point.
Mm.
What would you have to say to such leaders who are predominantly in most of the workspaces today, leading larger teams, uh, going against more numbers, and more so in the startup environment as well, where it's all about
Absolutely.
getting things done?
Yeah. This reminds me of one of the a scenario. Somebody I was
Hmm.
working with. He was a co-founder of a startup, and speed was everything. And I completely understand that. That's what drives. I know.
Yeah.
And there are about 5 co-founders in that team. And something that really struck me is, so he wants to go from point A to point B.
Hmm.
He wants to reach that destination, but he just doesn't stop to fill petrol in the car that's going to take him there.
Uh, yeah.
Okay. And so I'm saying, do you get time? Do you make time to fill petrol? How does your car run? All right. So he
Hmm.
says, this is an aha. That was an aha for him. He says, you know what? If you actually see how I lead my life, I take the car. If there's no petrol, whatever car is available, any of my friends there, I just take it and I go. And unfortunately, he's been paying a price for this, right?
Hmm.
And it's very sad to see that. It's very sad to see that. So there will always be things that drive you,
Hmm.
and what drives you may not drive the other people around. You talked about Gen
Correct.
Z and Gen Alpha. Their belief systems, your belief systems, the way you function might be quite different. And the one thing that I think would be very, very useful for all of us is, I mean, you're a father, Gopal. You know that how different your son thinks from how
Yeah.
you think, right?
Yeah.
We operate from a very different, our operating systems are different.
It's very different. Yeah.
And this is something my daughter taught me as I was growing up, where I had to redefine who I am as a mother.
Hmm.
I wasn't the mother who would tie somebody's shoes and feed the child. When she was a teenager, she didn't need that from me. She
Hmm.
just needed somebody she can come to if she needs.
Hmm.
But I'm there,
Hmm.
right? And now she's an adult doing her own thing. She needs me differently now. So
Hmm.
I can't again, going back to relevance, I can't define my relevance based on my own thinking of how it should be.
Hmm.
So one of the key things that sort of, and I encourage a lot of leaders to do, is make space,
Yeah.
right? You might not have all the answers. Make
Yeah.
space for different ways of achieving.
Hmm.
And there might be a better way. And how can we get in touch with that? To me, the key factor in this is the art of listening. We
Hmm.
just don't listen enough. And I'm talking about a lot of senior leaders that I've worked with,
Hmm.
and mid-level. Somewhere we lose the ability to listen, and listen with an open mind, right? Doesn't
Open
see
mind. Yeah.
look at listening as, oh, if I listen, then I must agree.
Yeah.
So we get to performance, we get the outcomes if only we can engage and take people along. Finally, who runs organizations? Is it the policies?
People.
It is people finally. So if the ability to connect is missing and you don't take people along, your outcome that you're looking for is compromised, in my view.
Sure. Sure.
Or if you look at it in another way, you can double that. You can increase it many-fold if you're able to take people along. So whatever is
Yeah.
your belief system, whatever is the operating system that you're working with, be open to seeing what else is out there.
Very interesting. And that brings to me an interesting question about, this whole notion of coaching that we do. Often a lot of leaders struggle getting coached. There are a few reasons to it. One is I don't understand coaching. Two, I don't believe in coaching. And I believe not understanding coaching is what is leading to not believing in coaching. And of course, I can't afford coaching. The third one, which is typically when you're going into a one-on-one individual conversations. But there needs to be a realization that there needs to be something done differently to seek help, right? So for anyone listening into this conversation, break down coaching in a manner which is going to help this individual who is struggling and not knowing what he or she is going through, and that he or she needs help. And how does coaching help them at the end of the day?
Yeah. I'm very happy to answer this because one of my mission in life is to take coaching to the world and bring the world closer to coaching, right?
Yeah.
So as a coach, as much as you get clients, it's also about creating awareness that this modality is available. It doesn't, it may not fit for everyone. It may not fit all situations, but this is also available.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm looking forward to the day, Gopal, when a leader tells, I have a coach I'm working with. Instead of saying, I'm doing coaching, I'm going for coaching. They've put me through coaching. So the way it is positioned currently, in some spaces, and it's my endeavor to change that, is to say, if you believe in yourself and you believe in your potential, if you face any challenge, except not technical challenge, coaching cannot support. So if you believe in yourself and you're experiencing some challenge, and we call it an adaptive challenge, not a technical challenge, then you're good to go seek this modality of support. Because coaching as a methodology does not, it's really, we hire people who are thinking individuals, right? Organizations hire people for your intelligence, for your competence. Your ability to think is important. Somewhere that ability to think is lost because there's a lot of tell on how to do it.
Correct.
Suddenly you reach a role when your technical competence is not enough anymore. It's all about people. Right?
Yeah.
So when you hit that spot, then there's some calibration that needs to happen to say, okay, like you in one of your posts said, what got you here is not going to get you there. So so it's a challenge. You really hit a roadblock.
Correct.
So any roadblock that you hit, other than technical challenges, I think it's useful to explore working with a coach. What does a coach do really? It's really help you think through. Your ability to think is coming back. What causes a challenge is really the way you think about a situation. It's not the situation itself. Just as any situation, you may think differently, I may think differently. And it may be a challenge for me, it may not be a challenge for you.
Yeah.
So it's how we look at our situation that creates this challenge. So if you're willing and ready to reflect on how you're thinking about things, if you want to explore your own thought processes and your mindset, and you believe in your ability to do more than you're doing now, then it's the right time to look for the support of a coach. And it's not always necessarily when things are going down, going
Mm.
south. You could have a coach even when things are going normally. I think there's no big crisis,
Yeah.
because this is to develop your own ability to think, get creative, to reflect. Like I said, there is oftentimes we don't give ourselves that time to reflect, and this
Yeah.
is a
True.
space that
True.
that can offer that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is a methodology, and fundamental criteria, if you ask me personally, is you've got to believe in yourself.
Mm.
If you believe that you can do more, then that's the great first step.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure. Very well said. And I really hope that people watching, listening to this, take an opportunity to discover the world of coaching and seek the right support. Um, if I were to use that word and not say help, because help often is
Yes.
seen slightly differently, and not with an intention to make you feel any different, but yeah, seek support, because we all deserve to grow, we all deserve to
Yes.
do well in our lives, and this is one method that is available for you to grow. Priya, one really, I mean, a question that was emerging in my mind as you were speaking about you working with leaders was, do you see a difference in the way a male leader would operate versus a female leader? And I wouldn't want to use versus uh, in context of how female leaders operate. And like,
Mm.
is the level of stress, is the level of coping any different?
Mm.
And how do you think coaching has helped the and played out in different genders at workplaces?
Mm.
Any thoughts on that you may want to share?
Yeah, it's an interesting situation, if you may call it, right? And this is not one fits all, one size fits all. It is some of the leaders, and I found a theme that
Hmm.
emerges with women leaders is very often the struggle to emulate their male counterparts,
Hmm.
right? So their style of leading is like a male counterpart, or the struggle is to be that way.
Hmm.
And the minute they, through coaching and through our conversations, they get to realize that they can lead in their own style. Right? Um, naturally speaking, organically, biologically, women are are more in the space of nurturance,
Yes.
right? In the space of empathy, in the space of
Care.
yeah, nurturance is care, right?
Yeah.
Compassion. It's not that the male counterparts don't have it, but
Yeah.
the social constructs that we have conditioned ourselves and we have grown is boys don't cry.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a woman cries, oh, you're too emotional.
Hmm.
So there are these social, very strong social messages that we have all grown up with. So
Yeah.
women leaders find it very hard to break through that and say, you know what, empathy is my strength. Let me
Hmm.
play to that. And when it is beyond, you also know the boundaries of empathy. I
Yeah.
worked with a leader who took on the role of mother hen too seriously, that she just wouldn't delegate. She just would take on everything on herself, because
Yeah.
it was an over identification with that role, if you may call it.
Sure. Sure.
So so the encouragement to all women leaders is to own your style. You don't have to be like your male counterpart. Not that it is bad, but it is, you play to your strength. That's where I'm getting with this. So they manage, whatever said and done, they manage far more variables. They are multitaskers.
Yes.
And how do we leverage that at work? You don't have to drop all of that. You are naturally able to do so many things. So leverage that. And when it comes to male leaders, I think this distance that they keep from concepts like empathy or compassion is not required.
Yeah.
So some sort of mindset reframe perhaps is also necessary to say it's okay for me to have that chat with somebody on something that's bothering them. All conversations, all review meetings, all performance appraisals, all conversations need not be just task. So I believe the feminine qualities exist in men as well.
Yeah.
So it's okay to embrace that.
Yeah. Yeah. But Priya, I think the challenge lies in, and throughout my own coaching journey, what I've realized is the challenge lies where an organization expects you to be outcome focused, which gets equated to when you put tangibility in one aspect, which is like numbers, quarter on quarter growth, which is hard numbers. Empathy, emotional intelligence are often seen as softer aspects, and they often seem to be in conflict, right? And that's what results into, at least the male counterparts, I'm guessing, to be a little more unempathetic, perhaps. How do you kind of balance that without being seen as weak? I mean, that seems to be a struggle with a lot of leaders I have been coaching as well.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I think that's the first battle, so to say, to accept the fact that it is not either or. As long as you're dealing with people, every decision you take, every behavior of yours is driven by an emotion. You like it or not, you see it or not, it propels every behavior of yours, every act of yours, right? How I'm engaging with you, I'm excited to be part of this, and the way I'm engaging is quite different from if I'm not too excited. I'm just there. So emotions drive just about everything. Your challenge of procrastination, your
Wow.
decision making, everything is driven by emotion. Now, the quicker we see that and the role it's playing, so we are not taking emotional decisions. What we are doing is we are using emotions as data. It's telling you something. Can we just listen to it and then bring in your rational mind to decide and to make a choice on how you want to lead? So by disregarding this part, your choice, you don't have a choice.
Yeah.
You're only operating from the cognitive space. You're only operating from a rational space. And outcomes, we talked about the current situation we are facing, right? War. Why do you think somebody listens to the army chief, right?
Yeah.
Is it just because it's a task to do? It's
No.
because he's built a relationship with that person. He's built that relationship. He's had conversations outside of work. He's had connect, right? The connection, wherever that happens, is what really makes you do what you do. So it's not an either or at all. I know that a lot of times we look at, it's like saying, I don't want to fill petrol, but I want to get to this destination. I have to fuel my car. I have to, if I have to get there. And this is the fuel. Because when you fuel that car, you're taking not just yourself, you have place in the back seat side for other people to travel with you.
Yes, yes.
So we are living in a place where we think this is contraindicative of performance and outcome.
Yeah,
It's not.
it's not. Well said.
Your ability to influence at a
Mm,
boardroom, your
mm,
ability to give a review, your
mm.
ability to take decisions, everything is, there is, emotions do play a part. And it's about the other as well, right? So your social awareness, your ability to read when you enter the boardroom, can you read the room? What's
Yeah.
happening here? What's the pulse here? What's the temperature here? Right? How do I then have a meaningful conversation with the people? So the faster we can incorporate this, or the faster we are able to see this, and it's an ongoing process, right, Gopal? It's
Yeah.
not like the IQ, which is almost static. EQ is not, which means you can continue to build on it. Anyone can
Can
continue to
evolve.
build. Yeah. As a
Yeah.
child, we have it,
Yeah.
but somewhere in the growing up, it gets lost.
Get suppressed.
Yeah.
Well said. I think as coaches, we end up talking to a lot of coachees, and some of the conversation stays with us. Right.
Yes.
I've had many of those. Do you have any of those that you would like to share as to any conversation that changed you, stayed with you, changed you, and made you a better coach at the end of the day?
Yeah. Every client that I work with makes me a better coach, because it's huge learning. I'm blessed to be working with people who bring their challenges. I think one big piece, I mean, somebody who I find it hard to forget that conversation was a senior. She was in the finance department. She was quite a senior leader, and all she did was work with data. Right, her
Mm,
work was always data, numbers, risk analysis, and so she was wired to think that way, and her job demanded that.
mm,
Intrinsically, she's not. She is data, but she's very creative. She's very empathetic as a leader, and she was struggling between these two parts of herself, so to say. So work demanded that she's very cut and dry and just talk facts and data, whereas intrinsically she understood the other person's challenge, and she's tempted to say, I hear you, but she never did,
mm.
precisely for the reasons that we just spoke, right? That, oh, I might be seen as somebody who is too soft, too kind.
Yeah.
um, and she somehow kept herself away from any events, any celebration. She would give all the credit to her team. She would never go up and take a, you know, openly own her success. Right? And as we spoke,
Struggle with
it
a
so
lot of
happened,
people.
yeah, to own the success, right?
Yes.
It's very difficult for us, because we have some difficult relationship with humility and visibility,
Yes.
as a concept. And it was for her, the penny dropped in one of the sessions where she says, it's okay to be empathetic. I can still speak numbers, but I can speak it with empathy. I can still ask for what I want. I can still use numbers to ask for what I want. I can still drive outcomes, and I can build on my empathy to do that. The second big um, aha moment was for her, and I knew this after the session was over and we closed it, and she sent me a little note,
Mm.
and she had the most beautiful PPT she had made, with beautiful aesthetically, and what she had experienced. And I didn't know she was an artist. She says, I never thought this had place in any of the work that I do. And I work really long hours. And I said, wow, just look at that. I mean, that was a precious gift. And we spoke about how, and when she saw me also, accept that gift, so to say, in how she presented, it was a closure call and she was presenting what went through for her. And the next week she was winning something. Her team was winning something. And she says, Priya, I'm going to go up on stage and collect it. And because this is not just for me, this is for my team. And I'm sending a very strong message here to the team to own their own success.
Wow.
That was something. In my mind, I was seeing her, and I said, send me a picture of you actually holding that trophy.
Holding the award, yeah.
Yeah, it was such a precious engagement I had.
Incredible. Well, I hope a lot more of the coaches that work with you get that moment. I'll quickly move on to a very interesting session or section of the session, which would be rapid fire.
Okay.
This is more a perspective from your journey than anything else. So perhaps reflection of the work that you have done, a leadership buzzword you would wish that we stop hiding behind.
Performance.
Well said. One book that didn't just change your coaching, but changed you.
It's a tough one because there are many books. But in the leadership space, I think it was a book by David Rock. It's called Quiet Leadership.
Okay. Yeah, I've read that and it's a beautiful one.
Yeah.
A question that always opens up something unexpected in your clients.
What's the worst thing that can happen here?
Wow, yes. And we often keep quiet about that.
Yes.
Yeah. What's your non-negotiable ritual before you step into a coaching practice?
Yeah, it's twofold. One is grounding myself, literally saying to myself that this is not about me. This is about the other.
Yeah.
And let me be here intentionally in this journey with the other person. It's not about me.
Thank you for sharing that. And the last one is power, presence, or purpose. Which one do you feel leaders are most disconnected today?
Power. What did you say?
Power, presence, or purpose.
I'm toying between presence and I would go with presence.
Presence.
Presence, okay. as in, what do you mean by presence, Gopal? What did you
mean? Being seen, being felt, being valued. Like you want to be seen, basically. So power, presence, and then purpose. Which of these three are people getting most disconnected as leaders?
I think in that context, it is purpose.
Yeah. Well, those were the questions that I had. Any parting thoughts that you have for the audience listening in? Anything that you would like to share about the work that you do, and especially around the International Coaching Week?
Yeah, to me, and you're also a coach. I think what I would wish for leaders is to be able to bring themselves to take a coaching stance. I'm not saying be a coach. I'm saying taking a coaching stance, a stance that is coming from a very curious, open, flexible mindset,
Sure.
and to be able to really listen to the other person. Because a fundamental need for any human being is that of being seen and that of being heard.
Mm.
And that's my wish for all leaders, for all human beings, to be able to take a coaching stance where possible.
Sure.
And we cannot, the world needs more coaches.
Yes.
The world needs more leaders who can take on this stance.
Yeah.
And the impact of it is just not the person sitting across you. I believe the impact, it has a ripple impact. It can impact
Yes.
an entire ecosystem.
Yeah.
And so that's my invitation to all the leaders out there, all human beings, all mothers, all fathers.
Yes. Yes. Well, thank you so much, Priya. Really appreciate you taking this time, sharing your thoughts. I know it was, these are the conversations that we need to keep having more and more.
Mm.
And I hope through this, a lot of leaders, a lot of managers, uh, men, women, both, uh, mothers do have a additional challenge of balancing a lot and still playing the leader role, which is hats off to them for whatever they do. All of them take cognizance of this and are able to take the right support. And I really hope that we are able to impact, you're able to impact more and more lives, like many other coaches as well are able to. Um, what you helped unpack was what often remains behind confident titles and perfect LinkedIn updates. The fatigue that accumulates in the silence, the self doubt behind strategy decks, the
Yes.
quiet ache of wondering, am I still connected to my purpose? So this wasn't a conversation about leadership for sure. This was a reminder that power without presence is empty.
Mm.
The performance without pause leads to breakdown. And coaching, when done with depth and care, doesn't just help leaders achieve more, but as Priya rightly said, it helps the entire ecosystem. So, to those listening in, whether you're an executive navigating change, a coach holding space, or simply someone asking bigger questions about your path, I hope this episode offered you clarity, courage, and comfort. And if you have been telling yourself, I should be able to handle this myself, let this be a let this conversation be a gentle nudge that you don't have to do it all by yourself. Healing, like leadership, is a shared journey.
Mm.
And as we wrap up this International Coaching Week, we are reminded of something simple yet profound. Coaching is, at its core, about giving presence, giving space, giving belief. But our journey of giving doesn't end here. If
Mm.
you're a leader who feels lost, if you're in navigating uncertainty, or if weight feels heavier than usual, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. You don't have to carry it alone because the future of leadership isn't about skill sets, it's about soul. The soul, which was never meant to be alone in this journey.
Mm. Mm.
More conversations ahead, more courage, more connection. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who's carrying invisible weight, someone who might just need to hear this so that he or she is not alone. So until then, until next time, stay human, stay honest, and keep listening in to Career Shifts podcast. This is the journey to the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much.